All right, we're here today with head women's and men's soccer coach Jerrid Schicke. Jerrid, how you doing?
Doing well, you guys?
Doing pretty good. I just kind of want to talk to you a little bit real quick about your season. We'll go ladies first, of course. So far, your women are 5-2 overall and 1-2 over conference. Kind of talk to us about how that season's going so far.
I will. If I could, before that, I want to take a moment to recognize on Saturday, recently we had a former Red Raven pass away. Brooke Smith, a Spring Hill, Kansas graduate, passed away in a car crash Saturday en route to Lindsborg, Kansas to watch her brother's football match. And our prayers are with her family and all those affected by this scenario. She was a fantastic young lady, a great talent. She moved on from here. She made us proud at the next level as well. So we just want to make sure that we take this moment to recognize Brooke. As far as the girls, I guess that's a good segue into our season, into playing for players past. We've had a decent season so far. We've been fortunate enough to have some sophomore-led talent that helped us kind of put some things together early. Last year at this time, we were very talented, but still struggling to find a rhythm and how we wanted to play. So the girls have been training hard. It's that point of the season in which we've got to keep them motivated to continue to work hard. Satisfaction doesn't come until the season is completed, of course, and so 5-2 record is a very nice place to be. 1-2 is discouraging in conference, unless you look at the fact that our two losses are to, at the time, number 7 in the nation, Butler County, and when we lost to Johnson in the season opener at Johnson, they were 12th in the nation, and so our two losses have come from top 12 schools. But it's been a good year thus far, but we really don't want to take any credit for anything, because at this point we really haven't achieved anything. Right.
You guys are still on the building blocks of it.
The conference play is now really ramping up. We've got one non-conference game, I think, out of the next 5 or 6, and so there's a lot of points on the table. It's the part of the season where players' injuries play factors, other teams' yellow cards, red card counts, some of those different things come into factors, and so and oddly enough, when you coach a women's team, there's things you can't always prepare for. I have 3 young ladies that are maid of honors and respected weddings next weekend, all on the same weekend. And so I'm going to be 3 ladies short, 3 starters short. Wow. Sorry, rather 2 starters short for a conference match at Neosho. So there's sometimes those things you can't really plan for, but we think that we've got the depth to go ahead and to fill in those gaps.
Right.
You shouldn't be recruiting such good people that are so well respected.
Yeah, right. It worked that way. And sadly, you feel bad even asking the question, but when the girls come to you and they say, "Coach, my sister's getting married on whatever day," and I say, "Well, are you in it?" And when they answer yes, I really don't have a whole lot of argument for them. So
just tip your cap.
Yeah, they'll be missed. But again, like I said, we're struggling to find ways. Not struggling. We're always looking for ways to motivate players this time of year. And being a few players short and having some girls that maybe haven't had the time that they feel like they should have earned, then this will be that time for them to go out there and really make something out of that time.
Well, maybe that'll give them that extra little push, like like you were saying, the work, and then maybe that'll give them the push to step up. Maybe that's motivation. Like
absolutely. We're fortunate that the game that all those girls are missing is against Neosho County. I have a young lady on my team whose sister plays for Neosho County.
Really?
And a matter of fact, there's 4 girls on my team from that area to 1 girl. So I've got these 4 girls from Bentonville, Arkansas that are really gung-ho for that match especially. And so I may be short a few players. Carrie Ann Rodriguez will be gone. Elena Diaz will be gone, and so will Caitlin Dominic. But those other Arkansas girls, they've got proper motivation, so it should still be a good day for us.
Kind of going what you were saying about with the sophomore leadership, Andrea Compere from Paris, France. She's a sophomore. Right now she's leading your team with 6 goals and 5 assists. What can you tell us about her?
Andrea is an incredible player. She's quiet. She's very stereotypically French at times. I'm not always certain of whether or not she's enjoying herself, but she plays at a level that is sometimes unseen in this league. I think that she's one of the best players in the Jayhawk East. Last year, she was on the Player of the Year ballot. She was the only freshman that was on the Player of the Year ballot. I feel like she's not just a goal-scoring presence. She distributes the ball well. We're playing her through the middle of the field, and so anyone that's watched us play has seen the role that we lean on Andrea for. And so we're fortunate to have her. What she can do is not unlike what high-level national team players can do. And ironically enough, Andrea is a center back in France. She plays center defense in France.
But here she's an offensive.
I brought her in to score goals for me, and so she's not a natural goal scorer, and that's why. Yeah. From a soccer perspective, she doesn't always choose the right angle to try and score at. But so this year we moved her back. Last year she was she was a forward for us, 15 goals scored. But this year we've brought her back into the central midfield, giving her more opportunity to work with the ball at her feet. That way she doesn't always have defenders banging into her as soon as she gets the ball. And that's allowed her to provide the stat line that you guys just mentioned about her assists as well. She's a next level player, and she's distributing the ball, even though she knows at times she could take it all by herself. And so she's an incredible talent. And what's really encouraging is that it's been a kind of a flower opening for her. She was very quiet last year. She jokes with the girls that she only said 3 things last year during the season. I think that's incorrect. I think she only spoke once. But she's enjoying the team that we have. The young girls are really, really picking up from not only her, but players like Lindsay Ackley from Miami, Oklahoma, Melissa Larson, who's from Bellevue, Nebraska. Both those girls were all conference players last year as well. Briley Brasher in goal is not a natural goalkeeper. She's a center half. She had a terrible knee injury in her senior year, and last year I redshirted her due to her injury, and she came through with flying colors. But in my decade of coaching women's soccer, I didn't think her timeline was appropriate to put her back out in the middle of the field with heavy legs, and she reluctantly accepted the goalkeeping gig last spring. Worked really, really hard, and as you can see from some of the results, she's tough to score on, and so she's provided a lot of leadership for us too, even though she's a redshirt freshman. This is her second year with the girls.
She's been through the fire.
She has. She's been there. She was on every, she sat through every trip last year. She took stats last year. She was ready to come in and fulfill a role. It just wasn't the role that she anticipated. And then, I've got some sophomore girls, like Caitlin Dominic. I think that she's a great team leader off the field, works incredibly hard. Her minutes aren't terribly high, but she is a girl that that when she works hard, people work hard around her, and we've got a lot of kids like that, and so we've been fortunate to kind of have a 10 or 12 girl turnover over the past couple of years, and that's what's necessary to be able to kind of start the ball rolling early.
Right. Well, kind of talking about Briley, and keeping with our theme of sophomore and players, you're building something with your freshmen here. 2 standouts for freshmen: Briley Basher, the goalkeeper. 45 saves and 2 shutouts. That's in 7 games. So she's carrying her weight, just like you just said. She's reluctantly taking it, but she's a team player. Everything she did in her injury year, she's able to come back and lead with it. And then Gabriela Rodriguez, freshman from Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Yes.
Say that correctly? That's another freshman with 4 goals and an assist. So, what you're building is being carried by your sophomore and then translated down to your freshman.
I've got a great freshman class. I really do. Gabriella headlines. What's funny about her stat line is 4 goals. 3 of them came in 1 game. So she's very strong for her. She's been playing with injury. To be fair to Briley Brasher, she shut out Blue River as well, and our second keeper gave up the goal to Blue River in the last 5 minutes of the game there. So to be fair to Briley, she shut 3 teams out of the net. And then a lot of those saves came on the heels of those nationally ranked teams that we spoke about, especially in that season opener against Johnson County. I believe she recorded 18 saves out of 21 shots in that game, and that was the first game of the season. So, we're a big fan of her.
When you saw that, 18 out of 21 against a team like that, as a coach, were you like, all right, now I have someone that's in the goal that I know is a player?
Yeah, I knew that she could play. That was really Briley's coming out party because we'd been convincing her that she could be great because she's a gamer. She's got one of those mentalities where, sometimes, I just want to scream at her in training because I know she can give more, but she leaves it all out there on the pitch. And when a team like Johnson County is throwing it all at you, it's easy to find confidence within yourself after that. And so she was really kicking herself after the Butler loss. We lost 3-2. We put her. She gave up all 3 goals, but sadly, only one she could have done anything about, and it was that one. That she spoke about over the next week in training. And so, Briley really is a gamer. I can't speak more highly about her. She's a captain. We're trying to convince her to spread out some credits and to play for me again next fall.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
What's the problem with having good students as well as good athletes?
She's the Phi Theta Kappa member.
Yeah.
We have several Phi Theta Kappa members, and we're fortunate here at CCC to have some outside programs like PTK and of course our other athletic programs that are strong to give these kids something to hold on to that's outside of what they're doing themselves. And so let's cross our fingers that we can keep her around because we are graduating. Viva la France.
Right,
so.
right. Talking about, again, Briley and everything, during this 5-2 record that you guys, you're outscoring 23-10 on the year, and I think that speaks highly of, first off, your scores, and then second of all, Briley. Keeping it halfway mark, between goals allowed and everything, what you guys are putting up. It's just piggybacking everything you're saying.
I think 9 girls have scored this year. We're somewhere around that, and some are scoring more than others. Vanessa Reynoso from Arkansas is her stat lines don't suggest the amount of work and things that she's created, and so we're scoring goals. That's nice for me as a coach. Goals always pick teams up. Goals always create those things. It's tough to be in 0-0 battles, in the 88th minute. It's easier to be in 1-1 battles in the 80th minute, because they can remember something well they've done that game, right, and they can hold on to that. And so I'm really actually discouraged by the 23-10, not by the 23 mark, but actually the 10 rather, because quite frankly, I don't think that we should have given up that many goals. A lot of those came in the first 10 minutes of matches. And that's something that that my girls have made a focus, or rather, we've made a focus for the girls in the past couple of games, is not waiting for other teams to take it to them. When you've got a team that is 5-2, they tend to think highly of themselves, which means that the easy route, if it can be taken, they'll go that way. And we're fortunate that we've been able to get goals back. And last year, when those situations happened to us, sometimes it took us 60, 70 minutes to get back into those. And so it's nice that we're putting some goals in early, but I'd rather see a 5-0 there. Even if we were only scoring 5 goals, if we weren't getting scored on, that confidence, you just can't beat that. I mean, when you beat a team 5-1, you're happy for 5 goals, but you're upset that you let them get on the score sheet at all. And so, clean sheets are a big deal. So scoring goals is great, but you've got some wins matched here. No offense to Pratt Community College. I actually started that program years ago. I have a lot of respect for the people in the institution out there, but they're struggling out there on the West, and a 7-0 victory is nice, but a 2-0 would have just been fine there, as long as it's the 0. Right. And so when you consider that we've only shut 2 teams out, it's discouraging for me when we just spoke about how strong Briley is, and that I've got 2 returning all-conference defenders, and I've got a young lady from Mexico City, Mildred Marquez, that's phenomenal in the back. We shouldn't have been scored on that many times.
Just one of those things.
I think, yeah.
Like you said, they came out and you guys battled back.
But a 4-1, a 5-1, that shouldn't happen. I mean, come on, when you're beating teams like that shouldn't happen. That's a lack of focus. That's that 90. It's just nice it's happening early on in the year, so
that way you can build off.
Yeah, we'd like to have, going into conference. Of course, we've given up 6 goals in conference, of course, to Johnson and Butler as far as that's concerned. But we did shut out Allen County, who was without their best player. I will note that their best girl was red carded the previous game.
We'll take it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it was a definitive win,
Yes, it was.
And we were able to get some outside players involved. We had assists come from our outside defenders in those games, and that's something that sometimes the girls that play defense like to just hang back and play defense. And when you are 5-2 going into conference games, teams will park the bus on you, and if they sit 10 girls in the box, it's tough to score. If you've got 4 that are just hanging out on the back line waiting to do nothing. So we're in an okay spot right now. Today's a big game for us, and so we'll see how we shake up after we play KCK tonight.
You've mentioned focus, I think, a handful of times already in this podcast. Now we're moving through September, getting closer to October. How does that evolve, and what do you guys, as a coaching staff, and also just with your team, like how do you change what you're focusing on, and have you noticed a better emphasis from your players and your star players?
That's a great question, because we set weekly goals, things that we discuss with the team, get their input in, and you'll see those goals evolve throughout the season. In particular, going into October, when we get into these conference games, there's kind of a rebirth at times that can happen. I've told both teams that regardless of what our records are now, all the points that take us to the region tournament are still available. And so, you get evolving focus or evolving goals that kind of shift our focus on the field. But off the field, becomes an issue at this time of year. It's getting close to midterms. We've got 8-week courses. Both of our programs are very inclined to keep an academic standard. Whether we can always keep everybody on that path, we as a program, myself, Coach Ferguson, Coach D, we all are very adamant about what happens to the students outside of the pitch and how things are going in the classroom. And so that communication between the faculty here and the way that I respond to certain transgressions that happen in the classrooms or attendance, different things. There's a lot to balance, but really all we can do as coaches is stay consistent in what it is that we want and what it is that we strive for as a staff. And we try our best to lead by example, and that's to always put in the work. Sometimes this is the few times that you'll hear me say it's nice to coach 2 teams, because neither team can ever look at me and go, okay, we're working harder than you are. And so when we send Coach Ferguson on the road straight from a training session so that he can scout out teams, when I'm late to the training grounds because I've been meeting with instructors or because we've been going over study hall slips and student success, we know that the kids know that we're all in for them, and so if they're not going to be all in for us, then the relationship's not going to last past the season. And
Absolutely.
so that focus is hard to maintain, but you lean on players and your sophomores that have been with you that can echo, because the kids at one point, they don't want to hear the same repetitive stuff from us over and over.
Right.
We don't stop saying it, but it's when they hear it from their peers, when they see it from their peers.
You get that accountability from your sophomores.
Absolutely. And so, on the women's side, we've got my whole sophomore class is bought into the way that we do things here. So they help us out a lot on the women, for sure.
Nice. And kind of, I mean, you touched base about sophomore, the Pratt and Allen County games. I mean, those were kind of highlight wins. You know, I mean, again, Pratt. I mean, we've both kind of been there, and I mean, beating them pretty handedly, 7-0. And then Allen County, we had a really good turnout from the event that you created.
With you guys' help, we appreciate that.
Well, absolutely, but I mean,
it's
like,
fun to bring
you
a community together.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that you created, and we had a pretty packed stadium for what would be a normal soccer match. And I mean, you go out there and you guys perform well, and so I mean, those are kind of highlight wins. You've already touched on them and everything. So I mean, moving forward, I mean, the next 3 games, you have KCK at home tonight, and then again going with the conference, you have you're at Neosho on the 23rd, and then at Cali on the 26th. So I mean, kind of what you're saying, and being focused and everything. I mean, the points are there for you.
Yes.
And you know, missing out on those few girls, but hopefully that's not gonna.
Well, we'll see.
Much.
We'll see what kind of character we have when we don't have players there. But yeah, there's 9 points available for us in these next 3 games, and I expect to get all 9.
Absolutely. There's the expectation going into it. And now transitioning to the men, right now you 2-3-2 and 0-1-1 overall in conference. Kind of talk to us about that.
Well, our men's team is young. We don't have a whole lot of sophomore returners. We do have sophomores. We've got a few redshirt, what would be redshirt freshmen, but of course they were around here last year. But on the bulk, my starting 11 is typically 8 or 9 new to CCC players. When you mix the kind of flavor that we're trying to have here, at times it looks like a salad bowl, and we're trying to get a melting pot. And please excuse the analogy, but when you bring in guys from Brazil and this Hoka Benita, knocking the ball around and bum 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 bum, how that stuff goes, and then my European players who are strong and slower in their build up and different in how they achieve victories. As crazy as it sounds, each country's got its own style of play, and I think we've got 7 countries represented on our men's team. So you like to have more wins going into this part of the season, but again, getting them all together is a challenge in itself, and I think that we're getting there. I really do. Our training sessions have become a lot less of people competing for their spots and a lot more of people battling for the entire sessions. We kind of fell into a position where when you bring in guys from all these different areas and all these different high schools as well, and you try and get them to buy into one system, one way of playing. There's a lot of blowback. There's a lot of talented guys that were being utilized in the first 4 games that have seen their minutes suffer some because of an inability to work within the system that we're trying to operate. We tell our kids that you should have all been the best player in your high school.
Right.
But at this point, none of you guys are the best player on this team.
Right.
And that following the ball, that kind of we call it ball watching, getting lost in translation, is common in the early part of the year. But I think that we've worked our way through it fairly well. We've got a very Brazilian midfield, but the anchor of my holding defense is from Wales. So how do you work those guys in when he says, "Coach, I used to just sit on top," and I say, "No, I got to have more." It's impressive what a few players are doing, playing out of their comfort zone. I've asked them to trust me, and we've gotten that. You've got a couple of them listed here. I'll talk about Aaron Edwards first. I know Aaron is one of our few sophomores who was on the certification roster last year, played significant minutes, but he played as a attacking midfield player or a winger, as a lot of the European teams play these 4-3-3 systems where they'll have a third forward up top, literally just hanging out on holiday until it's his turn to play.
Right.
And it doesn't work at this level in the same way. I very rarely ever play a 4-3-3 or anything where I just leave so many defenders or so many attackers up to chance and leave my defense out to dry. I would prefer to build up and to get my defenders into the attack. So if anything, we're more defense laden than offense laden. So Aaron, we spent all spring making him a target striker, which is what's needed for us to have the ability to play the speed that I want, to be able to play a box midfield. That's with no specific designations. And so when you guys are sitting in the box watching me play, you're never really certain who the outside midfield players are, and that's strategic. We care not about leaving somebody all the way on the far flank waiting to get the ball. We care more about squeezing them defensively and then switching the ball to our open side and getting our defensive players pushed up into the attack. That way we've got numbers advantages. And so Aaron Edwards has been phenomenal over the past couple of weeks. I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast because then he'll know. But he's someone that I've got a very close relationship with off the field as well as I do with all of my players. But some people cross bridges during their time here, and they need assistance, during that journey. Aaron's been one of those guys who was reluctant to buy into the way that we wanted to do things, and when he finally did, he's starting to kind of see that even if it's not the way that he wants to do things, there's value in doing it that way. So he scored goals for us, but what he does off the ball is incredible. He's the strongest player on the field at times. He's big and he's strong. He can play with his back to the goal, and he can create things for other players, which is difficult for players who, in the end, want to be recruited.
Right.
And they want specific stat lines. What Aaron's doing for us shows up on the stat books, but more importantly, it's going to show up in his coach's referrals and where he goes to the next level. Aaron Edwards has just been a great player for us. Baylor Cox is another sophomore player, and to kind of quote Aaron, those boys are roommates. They've been coining a phrase recently about I tell the boys they're soft sometimes, and that's turned into sometimes being a negative. I told the boys, some of you guys can't handle it when I call you soft. So Aaron so eloquently said, Coach, they're being fluffy. So we've been throwing that one around here recently, and we like to joke with Baylor about being fluffy. If you've seen Baylor play, he's the fastest player on the field. He's got such pace. In his club days before he got to college, he was allowed to just run and to run away from people. He treats the ball like it's contagious. And you don't run away from those things. You want to catch whatever it's got. He's worked out. If you haven't noticed, I pulled him from the starting lineup over the past 4 or 5 games, and I'm bringing him off the bench, and he scored more goals off the bench than he ever has as a starting player, and he was so upset with me when I told him that. But I told him in the spring that he was likely, if he didn't get stronger in the first 15 minutes of the game, then he's going to be a bench player. Right. But still someone that could affect the game. And he thought I was bluffing. And then not only did we follow through with the promise we made for him, it turned out to be correct. And he's realized now that if I don't call his name in a starting lineup, he better be ready to play when he gets in, and that if his name is called in the starting lineup, then he better make a good use of those opening minutes. Right. And he scored some great goals for us. He scored the equalizer against Allen County. He created. Him and Aaron created just about every opportunity in those last 20 minutes of a 110-minute game that we just couldn't find the net in the last overtimes. So they've been great. If they are listening, keep working hard, because this is in no way a free pass for you guys to go on holiday. Right. But they've done well. And Nathan in the goal is all conference. He's our one returning all-conference player, a team that only won 5 games last year, doesn't have a ton of guys on those lists. And Nathan was one of them, and he's a tremendous leader for us, a good player. He's got a lot of saves. He's allowed more goals this year than he would have liked. But again, we were trying to figure some things out defensively. I did bring in two new goalkeepers behind Nathan. And Nathan will joke that I brought in his shadow because Felipe Domingos is 6'5", 250 pounds. So when he stands behind Nathan, he's literally like his shadow. It's nothing more. You can't say more about his character. He's a team captain 2 years in a row, and he doesn't start every game for us as a goalkeeper. It doesn't work that way. I can't shuffle in goalkeepers in and out of the game. They need to play in halves, or in a perfect world, the way I like it, full 90-minute matches. Nathan did shut out Crowder in 110 minutes earlier in the season, and so
with some pretty impressive saves.
Yes,
too.
he was very strong against Crowder, and so we'll be using him and Felipe in healthy doses. But what Nathan does for us on the training grounds is one of those things that if I didn't have a player like Nathan, then I wouldn't be able to reaffirm the message day to day that I want. You've got 36 guys running around the field, and you've got 4 eyeballs between myself and Coach Ferguson. You need a guy like Nathan Hart, who's a PTK member, smart, kind, nicest guy you'll ever meet. But you need a guy like that cussing you out and screaming at you, telling you you're not doing it right, because when he's saying it, it obviously means something, because he doesn't mince those words.
Right.
I'm certain he goes home and prays about it. He's a super kid. But he brings it every single day on the training ground. And that 6'5" monster that I brought in to play alongside him is a young man compared to a Nathan Hart in maturity and in growth. And they're going to make each other better. So I'm very fortunate. We don't have our goals allowed here, because that's a depressing stat at this. But I spoke earlier about a rebirth that can come this time of year. And so we did give up 4 against Johnson in a 4-2 game, a good game, but just the 1 goal allowed against Allen County. And so as we move forward into the conference, our weekly goals are to shut out teams each week. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to follow through on one of those tonight with a clean sheet.
Absolutely. And I mean, just kind of going off with it, I mean, with the accountability that we talked about with the women, and then how Nathan is living that out for what you're saying. I mean, as coaches, we can repeat everything we say, but it's not really heard unless it's echoed by our other leaders on the team. So I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens, and what you were talking about early in the season, how we'd rather be somewhere else with the record. If we take our lumps early, maybe that translates into a rebirth. Yeah,
we played a very difficult conference schedule. When you look at the games we played, these boys played 4 games in 7 days, in that 2-3-2 overall. So
that's tough.
And they lost 1, drew 1, and won 1 in a 3-day span. So there's some good stuff, and we mentioned it earlier. One of those wins came on the road at Pratt Community College, which was a nice personal win for me. I've been coaching women's college soccer for 10 years, 8 years as a head coach, and I spent almost 5 of those out there at Pratt working alongside Kevin Cooley. He was in my wedding. He's a good friend of mine, but I'm not ashamed to say he's a personal mentor as well. I've been a men's coach for 3 years, a head men's coach for 3 years, and that's the first time that I've beaten Kevin. It was important. It was monumental for me. You always want to go in and beat your mentor or that types of stuff. I would have appreciated a different response after the win, but he's a competitor. I'm a competitor, and I'm not a fun guy to lose to. I'm not, especially in close games. I ride the referees and I'm a bit of a smart aleck at times, and so. But that was a big win for us, because it was a 1-0. We scored a penalty to get the 1 goal, and then we had our goalkeeper get red carded, and we had one of their players get red carded, and we played out the remaining 72 minutes with 10 men and Ernesto Santoy, actually our third keeper, stepped in and kept the rest of kept that clean sheet. And so we go back to that one a lot, because the boys, when you train on turf and then you go to grass, and I go, sharpen up, and they go, but coach, it's grass. I don't care.
Right.
It doesn't matter that you train on turf. We play on grass at times. And you've mentioned some of these games we got coming up. Cowley County is a converted football field with sand in several places. It's a Bermuda grass field.
Jeez.
And in October, anybody that knows anything about Bermuda grass field will tell you it's dormant this time of year. Nothing new's growing in it, and so it's tough going sometimes, especially when you play a beautiful style as we're trying to play through the midfield. And so we go back to that win a lot. We've got the recent win at Oklahoma Wesleyan, which is big. I've got 4 or 5 guys on my roster from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, that were recruited by that school. They're number 1 in the nation. They're varsity, of course. We beat their junior varsity. But their varsity is number 1 in their nation in NAIA. Coach is a good friend of mine. He's very keen on some of the players that we have on the field. And so the things that we've done well in the early goings, we've done well. We've also looked terrible at times too. So, but we've got a consistent lineup now, and like I mentioned before, we're young. On the 30 some odd guys that we've got on our roster, we've got 22 freshmen, and so they're starting to grow. We put together that tough conference schedule. I told Coach Ferguson at the beginning of the season we could be 0-4. But that doesn't mean that we can't still win the Jayhawk East. Right. So we're fortunate that the conference and the men's side is a crapshoot at any time. You've got KCK, beating Johnson County. You've got Johnson beating Neosho. It goes all over the place, and so it's not the same as it is on the women's side. If you're going to finish in the top 4 on the women's side, you basically need to beat everybody but the top 3. Right. The men's side is wide open. We can get points off of any team that's in the league, and that was evident last year in a group that wasn't all that strong. Johnson County went undefeated in the Jayhawk East, and their one blemish was a 1-1 draw at the hands of us. Right. And so it's proof that anything can happen on any given day. And so I'm very, very optimistic about where we're at as a group. We're starting to get healthy again. You saw in our last home game, and we posted on Twitter, our freshman captain Rafael Domingos got his head split open on a header. Came back in. Shout out to Aaron Macaronis for an incredible butterfly job in the mummy wrap, because that game went 110 minutes and Domingo was in it, and I got to give Ryan Butcher a hard time. I tell you, our webcasts, our live streams are incredible. We're so fortunate to have those, and with your student workers, but most importantly Ryan Butcher and Dirk Andrews. But after we cleaned up Rafael Domingos and put him in a New Jersey, Ryan Butcher referred to him as Quint Ramsey for the rest of the game. He even went as far as to tell him that Quint better not have a bad head injury because he's got a paper due later that day. And Ryan Butcher, Rafael Domingo is 4 inches taller and is from Brazil, not Pryor, Oklahoma. So I got to give Ryan a hard time because he's a super, super smart guy. And when I poked at him a little bit for that, he was like, "Well, I can't see." So I'll get him binoculars because it is tough when we go flying, especially when the boys are wearing the white jerseys. It's difficult sometimes to see those numbers. But what Rafael did, and he's coming off a hamstring injury, was nothing short of amazing. He's kind of that catalyst in the middle of the field that when he's there, the boys gain strength from him. He can hold the ball even when we're not dominating the possession. And him and Aaron Edwards, there's a language barrier. Obviously, when you've got so many players that speak Portuguese, and you've got guys that speak English that we can't even understand from the kids from the UK. There's a challenge at that, and we talk with our hands and with our feet, and so we point where we want to go, and if they didn't give us the ball we wanted, we point to the foot we wanted it to, and they're starting to figure it out and to really move the ball well around each other, and so we're in a good spot with these freshmen, but these early losses and the draws are an opportunity for them to lose without a lot of consequence. We don't have any more opportunities to lose without consequence anymore. Everything out there basically is conference, and they're points that we need.
Right. All right, Coach. I think that's it for today.
Good.
Yeah, I thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
And again, I think you guys play tonight. If this comes out on Wednesday, you guys play tonight against KCK up at the stadium. Again, as a broadcaster, we enjoy being out there, and I got to say, even again, I want to tout my streams, but if you can go to a game, the speed and just the smoothness and the way, and again, both girls and guys you're playing this year, it's just kind of really fun to watch. Just go down on the sidelines and just watch how fast that game is, and it's and so I look forward to being out there tonight. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out who's going to be calling. I know Butcher will be there tonight, so I'll remind him to watch the jersey numbers.
Good.
But it's one of those.
And we've got the hometowns up on the website now. It's just so tough between Steve and I getting all the information to the KJC, to the NJC, and to Presto and all those places. We were unaware that they didn't know, and so we've got that fixed. So that should help out some too.
We'll get there, and it's one of those things of I'm looking forward to watching both of your teams get there. And there's a lot of potential left, and there's a lot of good soccer left to be played this year. So,
well, as a coach, I appreciate that because it's in soccer. There's a style of play, wins, losses, or draws. There's a style of play. There's a way that you want to play, and that's different from team to team. And we hope that no matter what our results are, that the product that we're putting out there, the skill level, the intensity, the effort. We call it the 3 E's: the energy, the effort, the enthusiasm, that all those things are there because in the end, everybody plays individually for their career. But when we put on, our Red Raven gear, we want people that are watching us to be proud of what we're doing. So I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Absolutely.
Yep. Thanks, Coach.
Okay.
Thank you, Coach.